The city suddenly had a zombie outbreak. The man called his wife and told her to take their children out to avoid the disaster. When the wife finished packing her luggage, she suddenly heard screams coming from outside. She didn't dare to delay any longer and quickly pulled her 2 children out. When she was about to get in the car, she was suddenly pushed down by an infected person. Her daughter was Abigail. Abigail quickly crawled under the car. Abigail saw her younger brother being harmed with her own eyes. She was so scared that her whole body was shaking. After a long while, she dared to go out. But now, Abigail's mother had lost consciousness and turned into a zombie and quickly rushed towards her. At the crucial moment, the gunshots came. This man came like a god to save Abigail. So why did this happen? Everything happened when the boy was watching cartoons in the house when suddenly the TV signal lost. The TV screen immediately interrupted an urgent announcement that an unknown epidemic was breaking out all over the world. Those infected would turn into bloodthirsty maniacs within minutes or days of incubation. This disease had a super high infection rate, and many cities were continuously ravaged by the epidemic. The boy was watching attentively when suddenly a noise came from downstairs. He mustered up his courage and went to the stairs to see. It turned out to be just his sister's joke. At this time, the father called home. Because the father was on duty outside, he told the mother to take the children to a relative's house in the suburbs to temporarily take refuge, because this city was also experiencing a zombie epidemic. Seeing that her father always carried a lucky bracelet that she personally made, little Abigail smiled brightly. At this time, the mother finished packing. Suddenly, the mother heard a miserable scream from outside from time to time. She did not dare to delay for a second longer and hurriedly pulled her 2 children out. When she was about to get in the car, she was suddenly pushed down by an infected person. Abigail quickly crawled under the car. She saw her younger brother being harmed with her own eyes. She was so scared that her whole body was shaking. After a long while, she dared to go out, but Abigail did not expect that her mother had lost consciousness and turned into a zombie and quickly rushed towards her. At the crucial moment, the gunshots were transmitted to this uncle who came like a god to save Abigail. After finishing the matter, he did not forget to tell Abigail to cover her ears. Then the uncle opened fire and killed her younger brother, who was about to turn into a zombie. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Human civilization had collapsed after being ravaged by zombies. The former flower city was only ruins. Little Abigail had also grown up under the teachings of the uncle Cassius, who had saved her life that year. Abigail has become a female warrior living in the forest. Because Abigail has lived in the forest for many years, she has a strong desire to live with other people. Her greatest wish is to find a base for survivors. But Cassius's ideal place to live is a deserted island far from the mainland and humans. At midnight, Cassius was awakened by the alarm bell outside. Cassius accidentally went out of the tent to check. A zombie rushed out of the darkness. Cassius shot several times in a row, killing it. Both of them felt extremely worried because zombies like to live in herds, so there must be many of their kind around. It was still not dawn, so the 2 of them packed up and left. Suddenly, their horse neighed a few times. Cassius realized that danger was approaching. The 2 of them looked around from behind and saw a jeep surrounded by zombies. Cassius did not want to meddle in other people's business, but Abigail shouted and fired. There was no other way but to kill the remaining zombies. The 2 of them sent their horses to the jeep. Of course, they couldn't miss the opportunity to search for supplies. Cassius's eyes fell on the dead man's shoes. As soon as he changed his shoes, he heard a call from the car's walkie-talkie. It turned out that the person who had just been attacked still had accomplices. Cassius intended to leave immediately. Unexpectedly, several off-road vehicles rushed over soon after. A large number of survivors holding guns surrounded the 2 of them. Some people saw that Cassius had just changed his shoes and thought that the 2 of them were robbers without limits. While the 2 sides were struggling, a pregnant woman got out of the car and begged her accomplices to spare Abigail's group. At this time, the horse gave a warning. Immediately after, a roar came from the forest not far away. A large number of zombies rushed over like a tide from all directions. Everyone wanted to run, but it was too late. They could only take out their weapons and stand there to counterattack. A female zombie seemed to still have some intelligence. The survivors had no cover, so their numbers were quickly reduced. Abigail carefully axed the pregnant woman into the jeep. Cassius fought and retreated, then conveniently killed the other zombie who still had consciousness. Then he stomped his chicken feet and rushed out of the zombies. A black-faced zombie saw the female zombie shot dead. He angrily screamed. Only then did they learn that this group of people originally wanted to join the survivors' camp called Boat Town. Hearing this, Abigail became excited because this was the place she had always wanted to go. After determining the direction, Cassius decided to drive there, but halfway there, the car broke down. The pregnant woman woman's husband got out and introduced himself as David, a mechanical repair expert. But due to a lack of spare parts, the car was definitely beyond repair. Cassius's group had no choice but to walk. Just like that, they quickly walked along the road ahead and arrived at the city where Abigail wanted to live. The tall buildings here were still there, but they were no longer as lively as before. Cassius found a spacious building and prepared to rest here for the night. After making sure there was no danger around, they lit a fire and rested on the spot. Abigail was very curious about the barracks called Boat Town. That place, the pregnant wife named Megan used a radio to communicate with the other side. The name was just like the appearance of the town. It was made up of boats. It had no contact with the mainland, so it was extremely safe. Moreover, the water and food sources were extremely abundant. It could be considered a holy land where the living wanted to go. Hearing this, Abigail's eyes lit up, but Cassius was not interested in this place. After that, he went outside and set up a few more warning devices and explosive traps. After finishing, Cassius returned to tell everyone about the future plan. He would escort Megan and her husband for a while longer. Then the two sides went their separate ways because their goal was the door facing the opposite direction. Abigail was extremely embarrassed and ran out to reason with Cassius. Why not go to the boat town with them? Cassius was a very smart person. The more people there were, the more dangerous it was. But Abigail did not understand how evil people's hearts were. After arguing with Cassius, she ran upstairs alone to guard. But what everyone did not know was that the black-faced zombie had followed the scent and came to play with the car they threw on the street. It seemed that the leader of this group of zombies was determined to fight Cassius. Early in the morning, right after Abigail reviewed the pictures of the small lake, suddenly there was a crackling sound from the bushes downstairs. Abigail realized that a zombie had broken in, so she was about to go downstairs to warn everyone, but as she was walking, she ran into a zombie. Fortunately, she reacted very quickly and was able to deal with that zombie in time. But Abigail also lost her balance. At this moment, Cassius appeared again. Not long after, the leader of the zombie group brought his followers here. Unfortunately, they had fallen into the trap that Cassius had set up in advance. Hearing the explosion, Cassius felt a little bit scared and knew that he had been targeted by them. At this moment, Abigail suddenly remembered that not far away, there was a small lake civil airport that her father often took her to play. Unexpectedly, there were still planes there, so everyone would not have to walk every day. Cassius thought that there was a possibility that there was a plane. Although it was not big, he could not resist Abigail's persistence, so he had no choice but to agree to go and check it out. After a while, the civil airport that Abigail mentioned appeared before everyone's eyes, but everyone immediately felt disappointed because this place was empty without any planes. But Abigail did not give up. She remembered that her father bought a place for specialized aircraft, which had now become a mysterious-looking wasteland. After using the old method to open the door, her father's small plane was still there. Abigail was extremely pleased because she could finally show herself in front of Cassius. But this plane had not been used for a long time, so David said it had to be checked. Cassius and Abigail were stationed up high to keep watch. They had not sat for long when they saw a sea of zombies rushing towards them. Cassius hurriedly ran over to remind Megan and her husband to get on the plane within 3 minutes. They no longer cared whether David had finished checking and repairing it. As the zombies got closer and closer, Abigail tried to stay calm. Relying on her vague memories, she had actually started the plane. But at this time, there were quite a few zombies chasing after her. Their running speed was equal to that of a sprint champion. They seemed to want to block the plane. Cassius opened fire and killed the zombies who had just climbed up. Abigail finally understood the flight procedure, and she gently lifted the plane into the sky. The black-faced zombie raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes were extremely complicated. On the plane, everyone was smiling happily. Soon they would arrive at the boat town. Unexpectedly, a second later, the tail of the plane suddenly burst into smoke and then plunged straight to the ground. Fortunately, they were lucky enough. The plane fell from a limited height and was supported by a tree, so all 4 of them were only slightly injured. The plane was no longer usable, so they just continued walking. After a while, they arrived at the abandoned train station. After checking that there were no zombies around, Cassius decided to rest here for the night. The entrance and the boat town were both at the ends of the road, so the 4 of them could still continue together for a while. After putting his wife to sleep, David went out of the cabin alone and pulled down his pants, revealing a horrifying wound. It turned out that he had been bitten by a zombie not long before. David knew that he would turn into a zombie zombie sooner or later, so he planned to shoot and end his life. But thinking about his wife who was about to give birth, he gave up the idea. Early the next morning, Cassius discovered that something was wrong with David. When no one was paying attention, Cassius pulled up David's pants and discovered a wound from a zombie bite. But he was dragged away first, so he could only temporarily ignore it and not kill David immediately. Night fell, and the group accidentally discovered a farmer's house ahead. Cassius sneaked out the door with a gun and suddenly shouted a warning. After making sure there was someone inside, Abigail went straight to the door and said they had no bad intentions. After knowing that there was a pregnant woman in their group, the homeowner immediately let down his guard. After collecting all the weapons, the old man enthusiastically invited everyone into the house. Unexpectedly, the homeowner installed a solar power system and a rainwater filter. Finally, Abigail was able to take a hot bath and have a delicious meal. Cassius charged his laptop. It contained pictures of his uncle and his wife, including a picture of his pregnant wife. After looking at the pictures, Cassius went to find Megan and said he had changed his mind. He would take the two of them to the boat town and then take Abigail to find the harbor. At this time, the homeowner brought wine and water to everyone. It had been a long time since they had such a relaxing time, but after talking for a while, they immediately felt that something was wrong. Unexpectedly, the landlord thought that zombies were the new stage of human evolution and that they were the top species that should rule the world, just like greedy humans before. Everyone was so surprised that their eyes and mouths were wide open at the landlord's words. Only David felt more and more uncomfortable. When he ran to the bathroom, he realized that the disease had spread throughout his body. David returned to the living room and saw that everyone had fainted. Then the landlord pressed the button on the device in his hand. David felt his whole body go limp and had no strength left. When he woke up, David found himself and his teammates hanging. It turned out that the landlord had put sleeping pills in their drinks. His true identity was a biologist. After many years of research, he invented a special machine that could control the behavior of zombies through infrasound. Cassius's group had thrown themselves into this, so of course they would become rare guinea pigs. After speaking, the landlord opened the cage behind him. Inside was his wife, who had turned into a zombie. He tried to turn on the switch. As a result, the zombies actually listened to him and rushed straight to Cassius. David relied on the power of the zombie disease in his body to break the handcuffs. Then he ignored the control of the machine and ran to save Cassius's group. The landlord saw that the situation was unfavorable and immediately escaped. He disappeared very quickly. Cassius didn't want to stay here for long. He found a car outside and took everyone into the jungle, but the landlord couldn't forgive them. He controlled the zombies to quickly chase after their car. Cassius drove the car very fast. Unexpectedly, while they were driving, their car was blocked by a fallen tree. At this time, the group could only abandon the car and run on foot. David knew that he didn't need to resist much longer, so he decided to stay and protect everyone to escape. After saying a few words to his wife, he quickly rushed into the middle of the zombie herd, but that only temporarily stopped their footsteps. Cassius and Megan fought and ran. When they were about to be caught by the zombies, they accidentally saw a human guard post. This was their destination boat town. Hearing the noise, the guard immediately opened fire and killed all the zombies that had invaded their territory. The black-faced zombie leader stopped his comrades who were preparing to chase after them. Because there was water ahead, they couldn't break through. Not long after, Cassius' group took a boat to the center of the camp. Megan's water broke and needed timely treatment. Fortunately, there was a doctor and a hospital room. Early the next morning, the two saw the entire appearance of this camp and the large boat connected together to form a base to fight against the 6 electric lights. Cassius finally met the person in charge of the camp. He welcomed the two to settle here, but they were required to follow a series of rules. Cassius didn't listen and immediately turned around and left. He still felt that the island was deserted, free and easy, but Abigail had decided to stay here. She really wanted to live with friends of the same age, so the two had an argument. At this time, the doctor came to announce that Megan had given birth to a daughter, but because of excessive blood loss, she might not live much longer. Cassius was extremely sad and ran into the hospital. At this time, Megan was very weak. She wanted to entrust her newly born daughter to Cassius. Megan hoped that she could grow up like Abigail. Cassius remembered his deceased wife and finally agreed. On this side, Abigail was led by a handsome guy. Finally, she experienced the joy she had never known before. She didn't expect that the whole group of people could drink and dance together to the wonderful music, so she insisted on staying here longer. After having fun, Abigail accidentally saw the handsome guy sneak sneaking down to the cabin. She temporarily followed and discovered that there were wires and explosives arranged underneath. A remote detonator was placed in the most visible place. At this time, the handsome guy would come and explain that they were full of explosives under the cabin. If one day this place was attacked, the people would escape through the tunnel and detonate the entire place. But the two of them did not expect that the day they were attacked would come so quickly. The landlord hated Cassius's group, so he used the control device to join hands with the leader of the zombies. With the support of human intelligence, the natural protection of water was no longer effective. A large number of zombies swam around the boat to attack the boat town. Because of the sudden attack, the town's guards suffered heavy losses. The people who no longer had the advantage of the terrain could only be a scent for the zombies. Cassius was worried about Abigail's safety, so he went against the people looking for her. While shooting and killing zombies, he finally found Abigail fighting on the ice boat. Perhaps because he was excited, he was pushed by zombie to the bottom of the boat. The proud owner appeared. He finally gave him a chance to take revenge, but Cassius did not sit still and wait to die. He grabbed the opponent's hand and hit it hard. The weak machine immediately broke down. No longer able to control the zombies, the owner and the bald machine were destroyed. Many survivors ran through the tunnel to the other side of the river. When they were preparing to detonate the bomb, the handsome guy told them to wait because Abigail was still on the boat. While escaping, Cassius used the boat's oar to strike down the leader of the zombie horde. At this time, Abigail accidentally saw the opponent's bracelet. This was the bracelet she personally made for her father. But at this time, Abigail did not have time to think much. She was pulled into the tunnel by Cassius. The handsome guy saw that the two people had escaped and quickly pressed the remote control button. The entire boat was immediately engulfed in flames, but everyone's fight was not over yet. The head of the camp came with a neck covered. In the battle just now, he was bitten by a zombie, but he had not yet developed the disease. He was pushed down by the leader of the zombie group. Unexpectedly, it was also lucky to survive the explosion. Cassius immediately rushed to fight it. Abigail picked up the gun on the ground and realized that the leader of the zombie group was her father, but Cassius, who had raised her since she was little, was also in danger. In the end, Abigail decided to shoot the leader of the zombie group. After all, it was no longer her father. This also proved that the female zombie that Cassius had killed earlier was Abigail's mother. Finally, Cassius led the group of survivors to look at the distant island. They decided to rebuild a new human habitat there. The movie ends here. Above is the entire content of the movie Silent Zone. Thank you for your interest and follow. Please like and follow our channel to watch new videos as soon as possible. Goodbye, and see you again.